I was going to wait till the top before I vlogged, but I have to get this out. Holy Yule. It is Holy Yule. Odin wrote the sky. And so, boons were given and dooms. Things were given and brought. Things were taken away. Things were freed. It is the turning of the world. It has begun on Holy Yule. Holy Yule. Holy Yule. For 'tis an age of wonder. 'Tis an age of mighty things, and mighty things to come, and the rising of the people of France to lead us all. No, we lead us all of us lead all. The nature of change. I am only a voice here on the edge of the frontier, on the wilderness. But I see and I feel, I know what has begun on Holy Yule, on Holy Yule, on Holy Yule. So I am the wanderer with the one eye that doesn't work. And I know more and remember more than I wish I knew. I had no ravens, but I had my eyes and ears and long years of things, hearts and dooms and boons. For the ancient ages are still here. They are always with us. They are within our minds. They are what we are, and it is why that we are doomed for what we have doomed to ourselves. I fear nothing now, for I know the end. I know the songs. I know the songs, my friend. For this is Holy Yule, the turning of the year, when all things are done and all things are undone, and time and sanity sit on the throne of mind. Kings fall, peoples rise, but also the oceans rise, and yes, the skies, my sons, will fall. For it is Holy Yule, and it is the turning of the world, and it has begun. So I'm retracing my steps from having dropped my bag off, because earlier when I started doing this after getting a ride up the hill where I am now, I got out of a car, I had played the wooden syrinx, I call it now, that I played on, or found on a street table in Budapest and bought it for 10 or 20 bucks. And I was starting to play it. It's a beautiful instrument. I had it in my pocket of a different coat which I wore, thinking the weather was heavier than it wasn't. Anyway, they got the ride, and I know I turned into this alley here to start vlogging, and then I came back out. So I'm coming here to see slowly. I don't know how to use the flashlight here. We're going to look at the building across the street there behind me. Give you something to look at, and I'll turn around to see if maybe it came out of my pocket as I pulled this thing out of my pocket to my selfie stick, you know. That maybe it came out down here part way, and I'm trying to remember how far I went. And this is a part where no street people would come at this hour. Unfortunately, I don't know how to turn the flashlight on this phone. It does it sometimes spontaneously. Anyways, so what is given is also taken away, and what is taken away, for things taken away, there are things given. And it's like, okay, I'd come out and I played a beautiful bit of Christmas music in the basement of my garage, which maybe is all the last I'll have of that wooden syrinx until I find another one or something like it. I am buying a new penny whistle. This is a way to tell me to buy that new penny whistle, I know. But, you know, it's part of my life, this thing that I bought. It's a memento of a certain time, age. But if its time has come, that's fine. I can live with things. I've lost many things that I've lived with losing, including friends. And people who turned out not to be friends. Yeah, you know who you are. But that's okay, you know. I made the mistake of loving everyone, including those who had no love inside them. So, but that is the nature of being a fallen angel in a world full of demons. There's a piece of graffiti that came out of a film on poverty and the prison life in Brazil. It wasn't City of God. It was a film like that had said, it might have just been a documentary. It said, written on a wall in English in Brazil, "Hell is empty. The devils are all here." Yeah, well, that's kind of true, but the devils are all fallen angels too. They're all tortured souls. I get it. I get all the people who hurt me and took from me, that you're all tortured souls. You don't even know. But I know what's coming. All that I've learned, all that I know, it comes out in rhyme if I let it flow. It needs to be told. It needs to be sung. It needs to be heard. The bells need to be rung. The times are coming. The times are here. For this has been the turning of the year. For this is Holy Yule. A new age has begun. I hear the sound of the war and drum. I hear the sound of the timbrel too, and the flute on the heights, and other musics too. It is the turning of the world. Not all is this world alone. 8 worlds other there are. We are not alone. And so it is that at this time the world is spun. And so I rhyme. And so I go around to left. What I have, I must have left. It is Holy Yule. There is magic afoot. There are winds, there are mighty winds, and forces happening in politics and in the skies. And the storms come again, and the winters rise. But so the summer will burn again, and burn brighter and brighter and brighter again. And when we go, then we will know what it was that we did not know. So I'm Michael the One Eye. Michael, who they call Alfred. Or somewhere did. One day I was young. My soul I hid. Long years now, it's all been done. I can't find my flute. My whistle is done. If someone finds that fine wrought thing, I hope they know who made it sing. And one day in the public square, they bring it back to me and face me there and give back to me the wooden flute that I bought in Budapest on Vajruts. Vajruts was where I bought it. Hey, it happened to rhyme, not bad. I don't know, my gift to rhyme is back. John O'Hara and the poetry group who like what I do. You're going to like this, huh? Is this what all that other stuff was that you liked so much? This just all came out of me. Like this is tonight. And as I said, as I start back home now, because I've given up looking for it, I'm just walking in circles now, going, yeah, it's all been Orations, which is to the left. It's a magical direction. The way I was, same as when I play, it was to the left. It was to the left when I danced and put my leg in the hole. It hyperextended it and made me, a few years later, have to have this hip replacement, which is getting better, and I know I'll recover now. It's just going to take a while and a lot of learning and a lot of profound patience, but I've got lots of things to do despite it, as you can see. So, but as I was saying about giving and taking away, I'm looking, one last look at the shadows here. I was on the water and the pavement, you know. You can't see what I can see, so I'll just do this here. Just looking at reflections and seeing if I can see it. But it's gone, or else it's in the car of the guy who drove me up. And he may have found it even. Oh, I left it maybe on top of not the dumpster, the recycler had it down. No, I did put it in my pocket, but maybe in his car somehow it came out, or getting out. Anyways. Yeah, because I had this in my hand. I tucked it in. It wasn't a regular pocket for me to have. But anyways, about the giving away and the taking away and the riding of Odin and the giving of boons and dooms. Petty losses are one thing. Material losses mean nothing. It's what's inside of you that counts. And instead of going to play with that, as I'd intended, I ran into a good young friend of mine outside Walmart and talked to him about all the stuff from France, you know. We had a really long chat. He listened good, you know, he's a good boy, he's 22, he listens, he's good raised, you know. And listened to everything, right? He's intelligent, he listened to everything, we got it all, you know. Like I do, I can communicate what I know fairly well. I wish I could do like on Zardos, where they communicate by, you know, infusion, by touch or something, you know, just this brainwave rush of everything that gets known, which Sean Connery picks up at the end of the film. Winds up married to Sigourney Weaver and they raise a kid, and that's where I first heard Beethoven 7th and loved it, was that soundtrack, which has the kid growing up with that music. So anyways, I love the 7th, beautiful symphony. So then I go farther in the store, and I'm buying walnuts and whatever else in the bulk counter, you know, and somehow start talking to two other guys, and turns out he speaks French. He's from Beaconsfield, and we started talking in French, you know. He's like, oh, okay, like this, right? And I told him what was going on in France. We got into the whole thing, and we were talking about the marijuana legislation here. It's actually marijuana prohibition and concentration of wealth in the marijuana market, and shitty product in the hands of a conservative few who are profiteering and limiting supply and limiting product quality and range of products and shutting out all the people who made the industry what it is, who made Canadian marijuana the finest in the world. Yeah, and that had to do with Reagan's war on Northern California, which drove a lot of those growers north to BC, and then they found out about the cheap hydropower, and bang, away we go. But it wasn't gangs. It was everybody was paying outrageous prices for houses, so everybody had a thing in their basement to pay the mortgage. And then eventually, yeah, because it's the underworld, guess who comes in control of it? But that was because it was prohibited. Right now, it's like, okay, they preserved the underground market while opening up the door to shitty quality product for medical users. It hasn't hurt the underground market. It's made it go underground again. But anyways, you know, that being as it may, we got into the whole thing with France about what les gens want, you know, and he totally got it. We got talking in French, and they know he knew his history. He turns out to be a drummer. I think we're going to get along real well. He's another musician. I got the trap set my landlord has set up in the living room right now. I got it for so many more weeks. It's Christmas season. Come on over, right? So anyways, then I'm you know, doing that, and wind up, you know, going through the checkout, getting my stuff, and then I'm at the back, I have to park in the little cart thing, and then as I'm getting up, the guy stacking the side display counter near the entrance is my friend from the gym. they haven't seen rarely, you know, since we trained a couple of times, right? We had a good talk, and I got into it with him too, right? But it was also like meeting 3 good friends. One of them knew, 2, 3 knew them, because if the second person was like 3 people really, and one I already kind of knew that, you know, but this was 2 friends that one I've been seeing some of lately, and then one thought I'd never see again. I didn't know that he still worked there. So, but all of them are like bright young people that see the world for what it is, and there's a lot of us here. We're all the same generation, people my age who think like they, well, not think like they do. I know more than they do, but you know, I know the world as they see it, right? What they're feeling and seeing in their lives. You know that they don't know what's coming. They kind of know. They know the politics, and they just have to keep paying the kids and doing the mortgage. But I'm telling them, you know, what it is community government. It's young people saying no, the electoral system, we don't buy it, right? That we're all going to vote this time, but we don't like the direction it's going, and you know they're not going to put on the yellow jackets and go on strike here like they are. And there's not a strike in France; it's a pacifist movement. That one guy in the market, he was an older Indo-Canadian. I tried to tell him about it. He started trying to tell me it was all anarchists. Was very scary. You know, I'm going, no, sir. You know, it's not so. It's the police are the anarchists. You know, the CRS. And they're taking their helmets off. The CRS. I said this in French when I was talking in an earlier video. They're taking their helmets off and putting on blue vests because they haven't been paid their overtime for years. You know, and there was guys that had like some long time thing. By the time they finally got their pension, it didn't even buy a potato. By the way the economy had gone, and this is the people of France are hurting, and they know what to do when they hurt. You know, they've taken down more than one king. All right. So, and there's this sheer force of will. What I'm seeing, you know, and there is talk of civil war. Let's hope not. It's Christmas, you know, Joyeux Noël, hopefully. Macron is cornered, basically, but he's also got a representative on the Security Council and friends in the neoliberal international community. Now, Merkel's leaving office, and May's kind of on the ropes, you know, will bet on anything happening out of Britain right now. Putin is not in control of things. He's not in control of Erdogan. Erdogan's doing all this on his own. This is Turkey. He's being Turkey. He's saying this is our part of the world. He's kind of shouldering Russia aside. Is he indifferent to the Iranians? We'll see. The Iranians want a corridor to the Western Sea. That's this whole thing with Lebanon. But the corridor part of Syria that's involved is the Alawite part, which is where Assad's clan Alawites are a particularly interesting group. And I'd have to say they're probably connected to the ancient sites in Haran that I'm talking about, the astrological ones, the mystical sites, the whole mystical cults of that area. The Alawites are people who adopted Islam so that they could survive. They're not Yazidis, but, you know, they are now more Sunni than they were. They're more Salafist than they were. They were much more eclectic, like Turkish Islam can be, and Moroccan and Central Asian. You know, Central Asian. There's all kinds of Islam. There's all kinds of Islam in this world, same as there's all kinds of Christianity. Which is done worse? I don't know. It's really hard to say. Depends on who the ruler was. Depends on what the practice was. But the world spins, the world turns. It all goes around. You know, so I tell my young friends, you know, it's time for you to learn. Time for you to learn from people like me that can tell you what you need to know what's coming. And I'm not speaking biblically. You know, I just know the forces of history and where what is and what the diplomatic powers are, and I see the economics and understand all the machinations that goes on. And I don't know how I learned all this, I just absorbed it all. And I've realized maybe this is what I was always meant to do, was to be this person that's like an eyewitness to the age. It's why I'm thinking of using the name Truthsayer. So I'm not trying to judge, I'm just seeing what I know. Saying, okay, well, if this happens and this happens, if this happens, this happens, oh, and because of this factor over here, like the rising sea, you know, well, it doesn't really matter what such and so wants in the long run. You see, like now that's not going to go away because people don't believe in it. The methane's not going to stop boiling up from out of the Norwegian Sea and the Barents Sea and the East Siberian ice shelf because people don't want to believe in it. It's happening anyway, folks. It's happening right now, right? So I don't know. I don't know how long we got. I don't. But I do know that things are going to happen a lot more rapidly than were anticipated. And really than they've been wanting to tell people. And all the estimates that you hear for 1.5 degrees and 4 degrees, which is really extreme 4 degrees, are only conservative estimates of the effects, and they don't account for other potential effects. They don't account for them. You know, that we don't know, like the way the behavior of fire has changed, the behavior of what constitutes a forest fire for us. We're only micro fires before. Now we have macro fires, which have organisms of fire within them, it almost seems like. Which in, you know, the Islamic world, those are jinn. Remember the pillars of fire? Yeah, well, there's this whole theory about, it was interesting what I watched. It didn't like where the whole video led eventually, but they did have some good points about, you know, the eruption of Thera and the Hyksos being the Hebrews, you know, and this being all connected with them going back and actually being the ones who built the tombs at Mykonos, you know. That it all made sense, you know, but they didn't go on to where they thought they found Sinai in the wrong place. I know this because I've seen the Jebel al-Lawz, which is in Saudi Arabia east of the Gulf of Aqaba, including the split rock, the rock that Moses split with his staff and the spring came forth, and the platform upon which was built the altar of the golden calf. You know, this is all there. It's tangible. You can see it, and it's in Saudi Arabia. So that's one reason the Israelis are, you know, they're kind of friends with the Saudis. They're kind of friends. I'm going to put this way so you can watch the Christmas lights as I walk past. How's that? Well, that's too bad about my whatever it was called, wood syrinx. I'll have to ask someone from Hungary to see if they can get me another one someday. It was beautiful to have. At least I recorded myself playing it, but I have bits of it. And I'll get the new penny whistle, and I'm going to record my penny whistle playing, which I once was honored to be asked to continue on the sacred precincts of the altars and the temple of Apollo at Delphi, and anywhere on the grounds I wanted for as long as I wanted, by the chief archaeologist who had found me and said, please, please receive them, and welcome here anytime you want. So, that's my retirement plan, I guess you could say. And yeah, there's some ancient tragedies that I'd like to do as a drama or opera, or what'll I do? I don't know. You know, but it's the same with all the things I do. They belong over there. I'm European, I realize, you know. I'm one of the colonists here who realizes where we belong. And I see what's coming to British Columbia. It's not pretty. That sounds gloom and doomy. I'm not really speaking of the eco-disaster, because that's going to hit the Americans just as bad. Although that's when we have to unite when that happens. That'll happen. When it happens. But no, it's the politics of the situation with Meng. Although I was just listening to, you know, somebody saying, well, you know, could always let her go, you know, and for one of the Americans, now the reality is Mr. Trump has been making an ass of himself and making the situation more difficult. So the judge will be taking all that into account and the reasons for the U.S. going after her and after Huawei, because it's all kind of trumped up. Like I listened to Rod Rosenstein had to say versus whether it was Justice Minister or the Foreign Minister, I'm not sure it was, had to say. You know, they were very different. Not Horgan? No, somebody like that. Certainly not Horgan. It's not his business. Yeah, but we are crucible right now. We are a pawn on the chessboard. You know, and our country is the chessboard right now, Canada. And we are between Alaska and the lower 48. And people say, oh, they're our friends, they'll never invade us. Yeah, well, they took what they took before BC even came into existence, and they took the Alaska Panhandle after BC came into existence. And that was ours, other than Prince of Wales Island and Baranof and Dow. Maybe Juneau. Kind of, there's certain places along the coast would be allowed, but Ria Gagodo was Catch a can on it. Well, it's Tlingit anyway, but that should have been ours. And really what the British and the Americans did was partition Tlingit territory. If you look at a map of Tlingit territory, you know, that, yeah, it's didn't have to be partitioned. They really just had to respect, per the 1763 proclamation by King George III, that you have to respect the local governments, you know. Wasn't done. The U.S. doesn't do it, but the British in that case were negligent in not addressing that. But that goes back to the 1825 treaty with the Russians, where, you know, Bagot and I want to say Canning, and I think it was Count Nesselrode they were dealing with, but they were plenipotentiaries, which means they were fully empowered with the powers of the state to sign treaties. And so anyway, the long negotiation for the 1825 treaty. People don't understand that the treaty said from the tip of Prince of Wales Island northwards, up the channel to the mainland, and then along the edge of the mountains, along, leaving a lisière. But the lisière was meant to be from the open ocean. It wasn't meant to be from the inland waters. There's really profound arguments about this that came out from the British Columbia side, from people that were familiar with the treaty, but which London ignored and didn't want to hear. Canada didn't know enough about. So when the treaty to end the San Juan Dispute, where an American farmer had shot a British pig that had been in his vegetables or something like this, right, or the other way around. Anyways, Lyman Cutler, he's a butcher, you know, an American butcher. He settles on an island where there's already some British Marines, starts a farm, causes some trouble. In comes General Harney plus the U.S. Navy. Luckily, there was some Royal Navy around, not enough. The British never stocked up Esquimalt like they should have. Once they made a Pacific station, they should have realized the importance of the Pacific and built themselves a Pacific Armada. But they weren't serious about the Pacific. Britain was only concerned about itself. So anyways, but they did want this little port on the Pacific to help them connect with China, which is what the CPR became. So that's why we still have that tiny little foothold that we have. Sure, it doesn't seem like tiny, but look at the map of the continent, right? Prince Rupert to Vancouver, it's not that far. And the Americans realized that too, and in 1996, there was a Washington State Senator wanting the Navy to force the Inside Passage, which is less than 2 miles wide. You know, they call it the Inside Passage in Alaska too, but it was one waterway that should have been Vancouver to Victoria to Skagway shipping, when Skagway was the port for the Yukon. Instead, the Americans insisted on ownership of Skagway and Haines, and bullied Britain about it, threatened to go into invade us, annex us, and Britain had concerns they were going to go in on the Boer War. Imagine, Dixie in South Africa. Oh yeah, that'd be fun, wouldn't it? So what will we have in the way of a South African now, I wondered. You see, this is what history can do, these little turns of the wheel that happen, like the turn of the wheel that's happening right now with the sudden power vacuum in Syria. Well, it's not really a power vacuum. The U.S. was fools to go in there. Obama was a fool. You know, and what did ISIS want? ISIS wanted boots on the ground to go after them. Well, yeah, they got them, but they also got Russian ones and Kurdish ones, you know, and all the rest. Probably Chechen ones in there a lot, because there's a lot of Chechen ISIS too, right? So I'm going to get the light here a little bit better. So lost my whistle. There you go. It was Holy Yule, but I was gifted with rhyme. I met 3 people important to me. One knew, well, more than 3, but one knew that maybe musical partner and other things. And yeah, I'm going to do some things in French and have a band who can chanter en français. J'ai des chansons que je voudrais chanter à la belle langue. I have some songs I want to sing in the beautiful language, right? Which la belle langue is called. The beautiful language is French. I speak it pretty good for an Anglo, you know. Although I'm, you know, 1/8. But my great-grandfather, he came from Picardy, from a clerical nobility family, minor nobility, I think. Had a de on the first part of the name, de Burgundy. It's like if I'm not going to give my mother's maiden name, but it's de Burgundy was the second part of it, right? But she insisted it was de Burgundy and not de Bourgogne, which is the usual form of Burgundy. And I think what that means is that the family may have come to England. They had to flee one of the revolutions, I know that. And I think that's when they maybe came to England. I have to look into the family history, I don't know. And so that's an anglicized French. You know, he was in France, Péricard de Bourgogne, you know, but in England he became Péricard de Burgundy. And it's a nice formation, I like that. Michael de Burgundy, that would be a great little last name to have, but that means you're noble when you use the de. The other thing you get is the ac ending, you know. De means of, and the ac means, I'm not sure, but it's like Frontenac, you know, Chirac, and it's a noble ending. I don't know why that is. It must be Frankish. Finding my keys. Of course I can't find now. So, that was all very interesting, what I did up there. Interesting to lose my flute, but to have beautiful things come at me. I don't mean my handsomeness of my friends, but they were all, yep, you know, like powerful friends, you know, to have handsome and, you know, intelligent is the main thing, you know, that I found intelligent friends tonight. And so, you know, perhaps, you know, the way I have to look at the loss of the flute. Sorry, that must sound a lot on the phone, or bang on the phone. The way I have to look at the loss of the flute is that what is taken away, for what is taken away, there will be things given. So, you know, I learned a lot from Odin tonight, I guess you could say.